Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty, episode number 118 on October 20th, all day. Wow. Also, it's the afternoon just before we have the Idiot Quilter Retreat Icebreaker Cocktail Party, and then tomorrow is the retreat. We'll come to that in a minute, but let's look at what we've been working on right now. Of course, I haven't been working on a lot because I've been working on the retreat. But I got a few things done that I can show you. First of all, I'm working on the Scrappy Cats, the one that you people all pick for me to do. Thank you very much. No, not really. I'm getting the hang of it now. The first couple of them, I kept turning pieces backwards, upside down. Walter's studying them carefully to see if I've got the pieces in the right place for these. So this is 10 of them. There's 23 in the quilt, plus there's sashing pieces that go in, and these cats don't go in a straight row in the quilt, as you remember, those of you that saw the pattern when you were voting on it. They go staggered as well. So there's still quite a bit to do. But I have found now that I've actually got AccuQuilt dies that will help make this process faster. Because it's a lot of half square triangles, and I didn't think I had the right die to create the half square triangles the right size, but I discovered the other day I do have the right ones, so that does make life a little faster. So yeah, got to keep going with that. And okay, I needed a palette cleaner, and I've been making those freestanding gnomes, and if you haven't seen those yet, I will be showing those on the Idiot Quilter next week. But when I got those, the center panel I bought at the same time, and because I thought it was cute, little gnome sitting there quilting on his sewing machine, his little quilt shop. I thought that was a really a really cute little graphic. So my original plan was, when I stitched it out, I was just going to put some scrap pieces of fabric around it as a border and maybe hang it somewhere in my sewing room. But I also remembered I actually have a door. I'm not speaking right today. My brain is on other things, obviously. I have a drawer marked Gnome Projects, and anything that's gnome related goes in that drawer. And I was rummaging around in there, and I forgot that some time ago I did these guys, this American Gothic kind of gnome thing. And I had it all stitched out, but I hadn't done anything with it. So I thought, okay, well, let's put borders around that. And then I was looking through my 2.5-inch, orphan strips, and I had a bunch of K facet there. So I thought, what the heck, let's make one more block. So I did, the ones on the bike, put them all together with these, with sashing, little border around it, and I made a table runner. So that's what we have here. Now the quilting that's on here is all free motion. Well, the stuff on the blocks themselves, I did that free motion. I'm getting better at free motion, even though I don't like it.
I was going to say that looks pretty good.
Meandering, yes, actually, I'm just not new on the block here anymore, really. Not my first rodeo. But I did that, and then I used my walking foot with the serpentine just for these longer pieces, and I do these in a continuous strip. I start, I think I started here, I did. And you can see I go all the way around, and then I just keep going around. That way I don't have to stop and start and pull up the bobbin thread and keep going around and around. And then I had grabbed a few more pieces of the K facet, put them together for the sashing, and presto bingo. I don't have a picture of the back. It's a piece of K facet too as well. But actually, I quite like it, considering I didn't really have a plan to start with. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, it looks nice. Okay. High praise.
I thought it looks very nice, extra nice.
Walter likes the middle file.
No, I like all of them, actually.
Well, I'll send them all up to your computer, and you can...
I think I have the one with the Gothic. I don't know if I have the ones with the bicycle, but I do have the one with the Gothic.
I need to organize my gnome ones, because they're all over on my drive, and I have a bunch of different gnome ones. But anyways, yeah, that's what I was working on, and now Walter's going to show you what he's about to work on.
Yeah, I've got this material. We were invited to a 60th birthday party, so we were supposed to be dressing 60s style cocktail dress, which I think for men it's usually like a white shirt and tie and
I could wear a little black dress
and
I'd look good in
suit.
pearls.
We don't
Audrey
really.
Hepburn.
I don't think we really have suits that fit that well. So
Don't you think I'd look like Audrey Hepburn with the...
So I decided that I'll just get some like retro fabric and make a couple of short sleeve shirts, and we'll wear that.
And when you say retro fabrics, you don't mean old fabric. You mean a print that looks retro.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and I didn't want to go to really loud colors. You get that like mosaic type or big flowers or
like
something
Kate
for the
Fassett.
60s, right? And I thought, well, I don't want that. I want to get something that's sort of retro, but something I might wear again sometime. So I got this. I got cats and martini glasses, right? And I thought that was kind of neat. And I got this other one that looks sort of Jetsons like, and it's like cats sitting around reading, and an old style type fabric.
And what are they reading?
They're reading. One is reading. They're reading the Cat's Tale and the Big Meow.
Cat's tail, big meow. I thought they'd be reading something like, and that's the cat's ass. With the centerfold. Oh, that would be fun as a fabric. Cat with a centerfold from... Oh, I just thought of something really dirty to say about that. Well, I can't help it with cat. You know, what's his face? That idiot that was president of the United States, Trump. There. He really ruined the whole, all the cute, endearing terms we have for cats when he said grab them, And it wasn't by the cat. But anyway, so those will be fun shirts. And you've got 3 weeks? Almost a month?
Yeah, well, I should be able
about
to
3 weeks.
knock them off.
You got to knock them off. Yeah. So that's what we've been working on. Okay, so announcement time. Wednesdays. Sewing with Stephanie and Steven. You know the drill. Links in the show notes. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And the retreat. Okay. I have some pet peeves. Okay. Sorry if this might offend some people. Okay. But I put a lot of work and effort into this. Weeks worth. Okay. It just doesn't happen. The magic just doesn't happen. Okay. Like that.
It's not like a pop-up sew day with a couple of other things.
No, there's a lot of organization and planning, and I've been doing this for several months, actually. But anyways, you know what? Well, I'll tell you right now, we were full. We are not now. I have had, in the last couple of days or so, I've had about 5 people drop out. I think I'm at 90 right now, 90 or 91. Which is fine, because I did say, if you needed to drop out or because life happened, then let me know. And people have so far, and I definitely appreciate that. What I don't appreciate is if you're going to use an excuse, make it damn good. Make it one that's going to make me sit up and pay attention. Lie if you have to. Almost. Because I'll be honest, it hurts my feelings when somebody says at the last minute, and I've had several of them today already, something came up. Okay. Or I've had a few drop out over, not today so much, but over the last little while. Their excuse was, gotta babysit the grandchildren. Or, a kid is coming for a visit. All right, so if that kid is coming from, another country or whatever, yeah, I would have thought you would have known about that, though, the date. The grandchildren, I'm sorry, parents today really bend over backwards for their own children too much. I know you want to see your grandchildren, okay? I always want to see my grandparents. I love my grandparents. But,
Yeah, I mean, for instance, a lady was supposed to, had a group dinner or something like that, and a lady just drops right out in the middle of the day of the dinner, phones up or calls, says, well, can't, got an emergency, have to look after the grandchildren. The emergency was that the parents of the grandchildren decided they wanted to go out for dinner.
Yeah,
so she canceled her dinner plans so that they could go out.
And I watched in my own family, my own sister bend over, and actually Walter's sister too, bend over backwards for their children. And, Anyways, okay, I don't want to get in a whole thing on there because I am sure, and I know especially when it comes to women with their grandchildren, the sun rises and sets on those children. And, all right, great. Grandparents are important. Okay?
However, if somebody sort of says they're going away on that day or something, and it sort of sounds like something they may have planned for a week before and sort of knew it was coming up, that kind of annoys you.
Well, it's like, okay, this is how it makes a person feel when you do that kind of thing. Whatever, in your mind, it's definitely justified, okay? So I'm not going to argue with you. I just want you to know how it makes me feel. It makes you feel like, well, if something better came up, so I'm dropping you like a hot potato. If I charge $25 non-refundable for this, I wonder if people would still think that way. Now, the vast majority of people that have signed up for the retreat, I know they're looking forward to it, and they've made plans. They have planned for this. They have probably told their family, look, I'm busy that day, so if you want to do something, but you think grandma's and grandpa are going to look after the kids that day, you think again, because I have a life, okay? I have this planned. Or whatever other reasons that come up. Now, I had some people did give me some really good reasons, okay? Like, I did have one person who said they had a death in the family a week ago or so. So, okay, I get that. That's...
Yeah, and they gave you, like...
Well, they gave me lots of warning, but even if they hadn't given me lots of warning, I mean, you can't predict that.
No, you can't
kind
predict
of thing.
that. I mean... Somebody could have an accident or something like that, or, you never know.
Like when I use the expression life happens, I mean serious life. I don't mean, like I had one today canceled out on me because they decided they were going off to a festival or something.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow. But how was it that you didn't know? Like, festivals are usually have dates well in advance and plan for it. But what I'm saying is it makes you feel like
well, if I happen to be home that day, I'll drop in type of thing. And like, I mean, like that thing with the festival, you didn't know that was a possibility that you might end up having to go to that thing.
I mean, you have to make decisions, but you make the decisions, in a timely manner because your decisions do affect other people.
Yeah, I mean, like there are other people that were on the waiting list type of thing, and they didn't get an opportunity to go because...
And it's too late.
Because you left everything to the last minute.
Now, luckily right now, I don't have anybody this time on the waiting list. I was able to accommodate all of those people. But I did last and this isn't something unique to this particular retreat. I've gone through this with every retreat, and some of you are going to say, well, so you should know. Yeah, I do know. Doesn't make it any easier, okay? I have feelings.
It's sort of like if you're planning a dinner party, right? And you have 8 people invited, right? And then 2 people all of a sudden phone up at the last minute and say, my dog's sick or or something. Well, you can't, I mean, your dog's sick or whatever. But then later on you find out they went to a different party.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, I'm not saying that anybody that canceled out is doing that, okay? We're just talking here in general terms about that. But the other thing that bothers me, okay, it's one thing to disappoint me. It's another thing with my presenters. Nobody gets paid for this. They do this. I approach these presenters well in advance because I wanted to make sure that they were able to do it. That wasn't going to conflict with anything else they might have coming up or whatever. In fact, when I decide on the date for the retreat, before I finalize the date, I check with all the potential presenters, finding out what dates are not good for them. I plan way ahead for that. That's several months ahead, okay? Because they deserve an audience. They're doing this for nothing, but they're not just doing this off the top of their heads. They are putting planning into this. They're prepping things. They're organizing stuff. They have lives too. So I feel that it is a kick in the teeth to the presenters when somebody illustrates an attitude that is, well, This really isn't that important. It didn't cost anything. That's what I mean. I have never charged for this. I've never charged for it, and I never will. However, I do have the blacklist. Now, the people that have already told me that they can't come,
They're not on the blacklist.
they're not on the blacklist, of course, because they took some responsibility here and to let me know as I asked for, because I did say, just let me know. But we'll see tomorrow. I anticipate there's going to be a few names on the list who won't show up tomorrow, or I'll wake up tomorrow morning and I'll find an email. They will be blacklisted. That's too short a notice. Okay? For whatever the reason is at that point.
Well,
unless short of, well, I shouldn't say that. I'll listen to the reason. I'll read the reason and I'll make a decision there. But more or less, the people that end up on the blacklist are the people who have never said they weren't able to come, whatever, and never, ever after the fact dropped me an email as soon as they could and said, I'm so sorry. This happened. The house caught on fire. The dog got run over by a car. And the neighbors down the street all dropped dead.
Well, or all of a sudden my iPhone came up with a reminder that this was a retreat, and
Yeah, and I have had a couple like that, and they are on the blacklist. Everybody that's registered for the retreat, you've gotten 2 emails this week alone reminding you with, balloons, yay, it's a party. But anyways, I'm not trying to be a downer on this. I'm looking forward to the retreat. It's a big day. I always have a good time at it, even though both Walter and I are running our fannies off. I've done a technical rehearsal already this morning. I'm running 4 computers. Walter's running a computer. That's 5. You're going to say, why do you run so many computers? You'll find out with it. In fact, you won't find out, because if all goes well with my tech and everything, you won't even notice that there's different things happening in the background, because it should run smoothly. I just don't throw things together, okay? Because basically I believe that when you do something like this, if you're an organizer in an event and you're moderating it, it is a direct reflection upon you if things don't go well. So anyways, I guess I'm ranting a little bit. I'm getting a little hyper. Getting ready for the party tonight. Okay? So anyways, it'll be a good day tomorrow. Tonight, the cocktail party starts at 7 Eastern Time. It's not mandatory. If you can't make it, that's fine. If you have somebody else in your household, like your spouse or whatever, that you want them to join in with it, that's perfectly all right too. If you can be sewing if you want to, we won't be. But you can do whatever you want in there. Organize your underwear drawer if it grabs your fancy with it. But it should be fun. We've got some games. We've got a little fun video I want to show you as well, and we'll talk. And if you've got something you would like to show us, don't bring what you submitted for the slideshow. If you submitted something for the slideshow, bring something different. If you wish. It's all optional. This is very laid back, very relaxed. Bring a drink. Maybe 2. I'll certainly be having them. And then on Saturday, tomorrow, the official welcoming is at 9 a.m. But the doors will be open from 7:30 on. So, if you're an early riser like I am, I'll be there. And no problem letting you in. Do keep in mind, if you can figure out how to do it, make sure that your name is your first and your last name, and it's the same name that I have you registered at, because before I let you in, I will be taking attendance. I'll be looking at it. Also, that means give me a little bit of time. If I don't let you in within the first 5 seconds, just wait. I will within the minute or so, because oftentimes everybody comes at once and I have to check you each off. That's a security thing, as you've heard me say before. Same with your name. It's a security thing. Make sure you have your camera on. Now, you might want to test your technology, maybe tonight or something, or just to make sure. I'm not going to say that I won't allow you on if you don't have a working camera. However, it's very disconcerting to other people on there that have their cameras on if you don't have your camera on.
Yeah, you got to remember this is not a recorded event. So
No, it's not a recorded event. It's
you
not
don't
a YouTube
get
live.
posted anywhere or anything
No.
like that.
No, this is a private thing that's happening. But it makes people a little upset when somebody's camera isn't on because they don't know what they're hiding or what there's suspicion there. Also, we like to see the people that we're talking to. So yeah, keep that all in mind, okay? And things will run smoothly with it, hopefully. It will. It will. If you don't know how to change your name when you first get in, don't panic. The first thing I'll ask you is, who are you? And then you'll tell me your name, and then I'll do it for you. I will change it so it appears on there, okay? No aliases, first and last name, and that's the name you registered with. It could slow down the waiting room process for you if you do not have your real name there, or if you have something different, because what I'll probably do is, if everybody's coming in en masse, the ones that I can readily check off, I know what they are, I'll just bang, 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 then I'll come back to you. Okay, and that might take me a little longer. We're not talking half an hour. We're talking a couple of minutes, maybe at the most. Okay, for that. But you have to remember, 90 some of you, one of me. Well, Walter will be helping too whenever he gets out of bed with that. So yeah, okay. So hope to see a bunch of you tonight, and hope to see everybody tomorrow. And for that, okay, on to the main event today. So Walter had an accident this week. He doesn't have an embroidery machine right now. His is in for repair. What happened, Walter? Tell us.
Well, Steve wanted to learn how to oil his embroidery machine, and I've done it a few times. So
now, just before he goes on, we're talking deep oiling, the kind of thing you usually don't, where you have to open up the casing on your machine.
The 550 the Janome 550E or 500E or 450E or 400E all require a deeper oiling every once in a while, right?
Depends on how much you use it.
Especially if you use it a lot, it needs to be oiled a little more frequently. If you don't use it as much, it needs to be oiled once in a while. And if you don't use it at all, it may need to be oiled at some point in time before you use it. So the manual comes with a description of all the points and where to oil it. And some are a little easier to get to than others. So I've gotten used to being able to do it myself rather than taking into the shop and having somebody look at it and do it. So I was going to show Steve how to oil his machine, and I hadn't used mine in a while, and I figured it could use an oiling. So I was in the process of walking my machine downstairs, and because the 550E has an embroidery unit on it that sticks out, I have to be careful to get around corners and that. Well, I stumbled on my way down the stairs, and just at the top of the stairs, and I lost my balance, and the machine went down, and I went down, and my leg hit the embroidery unit, and I heard a snap.
And it wasn't his leg.
And it wasn't actually that bad. What it was there was a plastic piece at the end of the embroidery unit that holds the embroidery unit stable. And I did test the machine afterwards, and it does work. I embroidered a small piece. But the stabilizer at the end of the embroidery unit, I couldn't get it fixed. I couldn't figure out a workaround for it to fix it. And it's only like about a $5 part, but I couldn't get it to work properly.
And you couldn't get the part except one place in the States you saw it.
I found 2 places in the States. I wrote one place if they would ship to Canada. They never answered me back. So,
nice customer service.
Yeah, I know.
What was the name of that place? Do you remember?
I don't know. I have to look it up again. Okay. And they just ignored me. I noticed that they only shipped to the only addresses in the U.S. So
Well, they're probably used to seeing the weather maps that they show on the news in the States where it shows nothing beyond the 49th
so
parallel.
I said,
they don't know that Canada exists.
I just said, okay, I took it in and hopefully they can get me the part for it. I mean, it did embroider okay with the. I tried gluing the part and it did hold for a little bit, and it worked okay while I was using the part, but I was afraid that it would knock something out of whack if it was on there.
Well, also, if you got a bird's nest, which we'll come to in a moment, underneath it could pull the whole thing up, and it could cause even more damage.
Yeah, so I didn't want to risk it, so it's in for repair.
So it's in for repair. So Walter's without it, and we don't know for how long he's without it. Mind you, if he needs to do any embroidery, we can do time shifting on my machine down here, because it's the same machine. But anyways, so Walter showed me how to deep oil my machine, and I thought, you might be interested in this. It isn't that difficult. However, and in your manual, now we're talking a Janome machine, okay? We don't know how you oil Brother machines or Husqvarna or anything like that. This is just the Janomes.
Yeah, it is. The one we have is a 550E. But it's Janome has made this standalone embroidery machine for a bunch of different models. I think it started at about the 400 series, and up to what we have is a 550E. The one before it was a 500, there was a 450, and there was a 400.
Yeah.
And all of them are basically the same design, and they would probably be oiled in approximately the same locations.
If you have a 550E in your manual, starting on page 67, it shows you how to do a deep oiling. And it's a little bit confusing because there's little red arrows here and there because there's a lot of spots where you need to put oil, and they are not obvious spots. Like, it's not like when you oil your sewing machine, your domestic sewing machine, where you pull out the bobbin case and there's a little wick down in the center of the bobbin holder, and you just put a drop of oil there. You do that on these embroidery machines as well, but there are a bunch of other spots that you need to oil too, because if you are someone who uses your embroidery machine a lot, and I am one of those kind of people, you need to do this and regularly. But do you need to do it every time you do a new project? No. You should. If you're doing when you do a new project, if you've been sewing for quite a few hours on it, you've been doing a big embroidery piece that's, like 50,000 stitches or something, it's always a good idea to pop your bobbin out, clean out the bobbin case of lint and everything like you would with a regular sewing machine, and give it one drop of oil on the wick that I just spoke of. However, maybe...
Yeah, I think if you read in the Janome manual, it says to oil your machine every month. However, that's probably a little too frequently. Because Steve uses this machine all the time, and he probably only needs to oil it once every 3-4 months, maybe half a year or so.
You mean a deep oiling?
A deep oiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but that's only because he uses it almost every day.
Yeah.
With myself, I don't use it every day. I mean, really the last time I used it a lot was last Christmas. And I checked when I did try to oil it again this time, I noticed that there were there was only a couple of spots that looked a little dry. The rest of the spots were adequately still wet with oils.
Yeah. So if you take it into the shop for servicing, that's what they're going to do. And they're going to charge you $100 plus to do this. So maybe you're not comfortable taking it apart and oiling it. It isn't that difficult, at least on the Janome. I'm not sure on the other machines. But if you're not comfortable with that, then, it's worth taking it in and spending the money for it, because you should. But how do you know when your machine needs to be oiled? Well, there's a couple of telltale signs. First of all, and you would know this with your domestic machine, you know the sound of your machine. It makes the same sound all the time. It's a subtle sound, but you know when it's off. When your machine is making such a noise you haven't heard before, or a different noise, you know there's something wrong, and that's when you have to go into action and decide, well, what do I need to do? Well, the same thing with the embroidery machine. I know, because I use it so much, I know when my machine is purring like a kitten or when it's growling. I can hear it. And when I hear that, I know, okay, there's something wrong. And 9 times out of 10, the problem is something's gone dry. It needs a little bit more lubrication. I mean, you got to think about it. The gears, the shafts, and everything that are turning inside of your embroidery machine are spinning very fast and making a lot of revolutions. So
not only that, on the embroidery machine, it's even more so than on a sewing machine, is that it takes thousands of stitches to do a design. So that over and over and again, you're doing thousands of stitches. It tends to use up a lot of oil.
You're doing tens of thousands of stitches. On this that I was showing you, that one in the middle, that sewing machine, that was close to 60,000 stitches. It took an hour and a half to stitch that out. And those other ones too use anywhere between 35,000 to 50,000 stitches. So that's a lot of stitches. I don't think you would have 60,000 stitches in a quilt, not counting quilting.
Yeah.
With it. So yeah, you need to oil it. So that's the first thing. Listen to your machine. Get used to what it should sound like when it's working fine, so you know what it sounds like when it's not. And that means probably need to oil it. But other telltale signs. Okay, thread breaks. Are you suddenly getting a lot of thread breaks for no real reason? You've been using you're using the same needle size, you're using the same type of thread, the same size of thread, but suddenly it's like it takes a few stitches and then it's breaking.
Now, sometimes that may just be a needle change.
It could be a needle change that you need to do. But a lot of times it's the oil, because what's happening is, and this goes kind of with the sound as well, it means that things aren't turning as well as they should. They're not as slippery. And that puts tension on your thread. And it doesn't take much when you're doing something like an embroidery project to break your thread. So try oiling it in the usual spot. If you're not used to oiling it in the wick on a regular basis underneath the bobbin, do that. That may solve your problem right there. And don't over oil. One drop. That's all you know. Need. Yeah, one drop. And we'll tell you why. If you put too much oil on it, where's the oil going to go? The wick can't absorb any more. It's going to spill over into underneath your bobbin, in the bobbin case, and it's going to leak down inside your machine, and it eventually will leak out of your machine. And you could get oil on your project that you're working on, or, you don't need that much. One drop is all you need. Now, other things that might be happening too. Bird's nests. Bird's nests is your thread gets sucked down into the machine. It gets all knotted up, and your machine will make a terrible noise. You'll hear it.
It'll probably grind to a halt.
Yeah, it'll probably, because there's a safety feature in the machine. When it does that, it'll shut the machine off, but not before it possibly has popped your hoop out. Then you're screwed. You're never going to line up that piece. And I usually find with these machines, for some reason, my luck is, they like to do that in the last 5 minutes of a 3-hour project.
Yeah, exactly. It always happens in close to the end of the project or something like that.
Yeah. So that is possibly a sign that you need a deep oiling in it as well. Now, if you get a bird's nest, and there's other reasons you could get a bird's nest beside the oiling, but if you get them on a frequent basis.
Sometimes I found that it was a spot where there's a lot of stitches, and then you get a bird's nest, and then you try and start stitching in the same location again. You may get a second bird's nest, so you might have to advance a couple of stitches to
about that. But if you get one of those, your whole project's going to be sucked down into the machine, and you're going to look and go, "How the hell do I?"
And if you're
don't let me finish a sentence.
Okay, and if you're
I'm glad you're agreeable to it.
If your
don't make me
hoop has not popped.
If your poop has not popped.
If your hoop has not popped,
okay,
right? And you'll find that your hoop is stuck right to the machine.
Yeah. And what you don't want to do is pry your hoop off the machine, because you could crack your hoop, you could break your hoop, you could put the machine out of alignment, all of that. So how do you get it off? Well, I have this handy little toolkit. These are available on Amazon. It cost me, I think, about $12 at the time I bought it Canadian.
You can buy something similar in any sewing store too.
These are seam rippers, but they're scalpel type. They're little curved blades, and they're very, very sharp. And what you can do is you can slide this underneath. They have long handles underneath your hoop, and basically hook the hook end around the little bird's nest and
slice it off.
Slice it off.
And then, also do it really, really sharp kitchen knife if you're right.
Yeah, if you haven't got these. But these are worth the money, and they're not that expensive to buy them. And they don't all come in this kit. Some did. The ones I bought came in this nice little, looks like a glass case, but kind of a thing. But yep, these are, I can't live without these. I use them. Well, I want to say frequently. What I do frequently. I don't get bird's nests a lot, but when you do, you're going to want to have something like this to get at it. So that's how you get that kind of thing. Other signs that you may need oiling, besides the sound, besides your thread breaks, thread shredding can happen too. That's usually tied in with why the thread is broken. Now, again, as Walter said, that could be that it's time to replace your needle. Okay, because that could be the cause.
But before you do deep oiling, you can replace your needle and see if it.
Yeah, you can try all that before you want to yank the whole machine apart. Okay, to oil it. You also want to use sewing machine oil. I mean, that probably goes without saying, but some people, I have heard of some horror stories where people have just reached in their husband's or workshop and pulled out a can of WD-40. That's not oil.
No,
that's a solvent.
Yeah, it's a solvent. It's actually not an oil. What you really need to use is actual sewing machine oil. It's not expensive.
No.
A bottle will cost you at the most $10.
And probably last you a lifetime.
Most of the time they're $5 or $6. And it'll last you forever. And basically it's a very special type of mineral oil that's used for sewing machines. It doesn't stain stuff as bad as anything else, and it doesn't gum up. Yeah. And the problem with regular machine oil that you get that might be in somebody's workshop is that machine oil can tend to dry out and gum up things, and you don't want to use that.
Yeah, that's when you may have to use WD-40 just to ungunk a machine. And again, not for...
Then you might end up down the road. It may work fine right for that moment and stuff like that. But down the road, as it gums up your machine, you may end up having a major repair down the road.
Yeah. Think about if you own a featherweight and it wasn't working. The reason it probably wasn't working the way it's supposed to is because it had old built-up oil for 50 years in there, and the oil had congealed. And that's what they do when they recondition featherweights. They go in, and they do use a solvent on them to get rid of the congealed oil. Then they do re-oiling of all of that.
And now it's because in the old days, a long time ago, they didn't know that there were special oils that they could use.
They just used what was ever in the house.
For a machine, like a sewing machine.
Yeah.
And over the years, they've developed products that are specific for sewing machines.
Yeah. So all those things, I'm trying to think if there's any other reason when you might want to oil your machine or know that you should oil the machine. I think I covered about...
if your machine's not working right to begin with, it might be a good idea to oil the machine. I know a lady recently that sold her sewing machine that was a combination sewing machine and embroidery machine. And she sold it to some lady. And she only ever used it as a sewing machine. She never ever used the embroidery unit. Mm-hmm. And the lady tried the embroidery unit and was all upset because her embroidery unit wasn't working. And she wrote me a message and said, do you know what the problem could be? And as soon as I heard that she had never used the embroidery unit, I said, when's the last time you oiled it?
Never.
And she said, oiled it? Never.
Mm-hmm.
I never used the embroidery machine, so it should be brand new. That's what she said to me. And I said, look, things dry out over periods of time. If you have a machine for a few years and you've never used it, chances are it needs to be oiled.
Yeah. So what we did was I recorded Walter going through oiling the machine. And it's the video, I'm going to insert it in here. It runs about 24 minutes. If you're not interested, just fast forward through it. But I think you'll get an idea of, one, it's not complicated. Two, there are a couple of tricks. Again, remember we're doing this on a Janome. But I think a lot of other machines is probably very similar. You might just open pieces of it up differently. I don't know. Check your manual. And yeah, you'll see what's involved in oiling the machine. So I'm going to insert that video right now here. Okay, so we're about to attempt to do some servicing on our embroidery machines, which means oiling. There is one spot you can get to, two spots actually you can get to very readily. One is the underneath the bobbin, right down in here, just like your sewing machine. There's a wick there, you give it a drop of oil. And there's another spot here on the top, little cover comes off, and you give this a couple of shots of oil as well. However, lately I've been using my embroidery machine quite a bit and doing some very extensive and heavy duty embroidery, and I think my machine needs a more deep oiling. And Walter has done this before, but I need to learn. So he's got out the manual, because there's different spots that you oil that are not readily available for you to get at, but you can do it. So that's what we're going to attempt now. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is take off the back cover, and there is a screw here on the back, and Walter's using his Phillips screwdriver to take that out. Now, what holds it on at the bottom? Some kind of clip?
Yeah, it just
comes off. Okay. So there you go. So now we've got the bottom, or the end piece actually, off.
This is actually a common spot where a lot of machines, regardless of what their kind is, usually need some oil, right? So I have a guide in here that tells me on the manual that comes with the machine, how to do this. So it says oil points as indicated in the illustration, right? So it says to oil this bar, the bar here.
Which bar? Okay, let me come around so
there's a bar here. Look, it shows you a diagram which spots with the red arrows to oil on each of the different bars. Okay, so you just
and that's page 67 of the manual.
Yeah.
And this is a 550E, by the way. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the 500E. But there's a spot right here to oil. You just put a drop there. And then you got to put a drop down at the bottom here.
Just a second. I'm trying to get you in focus.
Right.
Okay.
And it's when you crank the hand crank, it cranks it up and down so you can see where it gets oiled at the top here and at the bottom down here.
Okay, do the top again. You're a little quick.
You oil the top here,
yes,
one drop, and you oil the bottom down here.
Now, where's that down in there? It's difficult to see. Okay, right there where that little round thing is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That requires a drop. Then there's another thing right behind it that has a spring in it. See? Right here. It's you see it better here. There's a spring right behind it. See, that's the one I just oiled.
Okay.
And then behind it is one that has a spring. You can't see it from the top. You look down here, right? And this
is very awkward.
This is the one I just oiled.
Right.
Right behind it, there's another one.
Yeah.
Right? And it has a spring on it.
Okay.
Right? Well, that one you have to oil in the same spots, at the top and at the bottom.
Okay.
That spot is where your foot jumps up and down. Okay. Then there's also another spot inside, if you look, and it's the part where your needle thread comes in through this thing with a hole in it. I forget what that's called. That's the thread take-up lever. Okay, and you see there, and it tells you to oil in several spots. It's this spot here at the end. You can see it on the diagram. And then any parts that are moving, this spot in here, and this spot in here, and down at the bottom there's a moving spot too.
Now, I know you can't see this on the camera very clearly, but if you're in your manual, it shows you
right here all
each
the
of the
spots.
spots. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots.
Easy to find because it's the take-up lever. It's the one that holds your thread when you
We've already
thread it.
established that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then there's this spot where you know about, there's a wick in the top here.
Which I just showed.
There is a spot in the top here, and it has a wick in it. And I think my wick is still pretty okay. It's still wet, so I don't really need to oil that.
Yeah, you don't want to over oil because you don't want oil pooling.
No.
Because it could leak out from the bottom and onto your project, and then you got an oil stain.
Put more than a drop in, it's too much. It'll start leaking out onto your project, and you don't want that to happen. So then I just put this back on. However, it's a little fiddly to put it back on. But
so is there some kind of guide underneath the bottom of it that you clip in first, or is it just...
Well, no, it's just, there's just like little clips on the edges here, and then there's a spot that just fits in. You just have to wrangle around with it a little bit until it clips in properly.
Kind of fiddly.
Let me see. It goes here. It usually pops right in, but because I'm doing this on camera, it's not popping in.
Do you have to drop your lever?
I don't think so. But, yeah. No, see, there's a spot right here it has to clip in.
And so what? This piece is clipping into...
Yeah, so maybe if I do this instead.
I wouldn't say force that.
Making people think that this is hard to do.
Well, I think there's a sequence.
Figured out how this works. There's a little spot here that goes in between this spot here. This spot goes in first, and then you just work. There's two little clips on either side that has to go. So what I've done here is, you're looking at an amateur doing it. So I put that clip in like it's supposed to, the first part. There's a piece on the back that has to go in, and a piece at the top, and there it goes in.
The reason it wasn't going in before is because this piece that was at the back was on the outside. You need to squeeze it in so it goes on the inside. So it's not that difficult to do if you figure it out.
Yeah, I know. The first time you do it, and sometimes it looks easier than it is. And then you just screw it back in.
Okay, so the majority of the oiling is behind that cover, and then you've got those two other points, the one we showed you on top of the machine with the little sliding door, and then of course the wick that's in the bobbin case, which is, the same as any sewing machine pretty much there. Okay, now what do you do?
The more difficult part.
What is that? Was that we just did was the more difficult part?
That's the easy part.
Oh, now we have a difficult part. Okay.
Now this part you may not want to do on your own, and this is where people might bring in their machines to be serviced. Do you have an awl?
Yes. It's on my sewing machine over there in the blue, my sewing machine, blue tray on the table of the sewing machine. It's right underneath that piece of fabric that's sitting on the blue tray. Okay.
So what I do is I use
Don't attempt this at home.
and I pop this little end piece out.
Okay.
It's a little piece of plastic, right? And way in there is a screw.
I can't focus on it. Oh, there it is.
You need this screwdriver,
which is a
which
Phillips.
is a Phillips, and then you just unscrew it a little.
A little. So you're not taking it right out?
No, that's the tricky part. Oh wait, no, that's not true. I think that.
This is also in the manual.
Mm-hmm. One, six, I think you actually take this one out.
Well, that would make sense, but I figured you knew what you were doing. Done it before.
Okay.
There you go. So
And
that whole
pops
panel's
out.
up. So what's in here? All kinds of things. Okay.
Okay, and with that, you just have to, there's a little wheel here, which is actually still pretty oily.
A little wheel where?
Right there, down there, see? No. I don't know what you got for focus on here. There's a little wheel right here.
Oh,
It's a piece of felt
All right.
right on the bottom here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a piece of felt, and you need to oil that one drop.
Again, there are diagrams in your manual.
Right, and mine is actually pretty oily, so I don't really need to do that. And then I just have to put this cover back on, slide it back on into a spot, and then screw it back. If I get screwed to go, a screwdriver is magnetics.
And it is a Phillips screwdriver, as already said. And for those of you that don't know what we mean by a Phillips screwdriver, it's a star head screwdriver. Okay.
Okay, I don't know if it seems to be catching. There we go.
All right.
So then we put the little end cap back on. Mind you, when you turn this machine sideways, make sure you do not have a USB in your machine.
Why?
Why? Because your USB will scrunch and it will wreck your port.
And how do we know that?
Well, I didn't wreck my port, but I could have when I did that.
Okay, so
Okay, and then there's this spot under here that needs to be oiled, and I have a feeling that's fairly oiled as it is because I've got oil seeping out of the bottom.
oh, okay. You really don't want oil seeping out. Well, you don't use your machine as much as I've been using mine, so
No.
you probably oiling your machine probably didn't need all of this as much.
No. No, but I thought it was sitting for a long time, so I wondered if it needed some oil. And inside here, if you can see, look inside. You hold your camera down a bit lower. No.
Well, if we turn on, you know, we're kind of going about this the half-assed way here. Like, let's
Turn on
turn
your,
on the Shed a little bit more light on here. Okay.
Okay, that you see better. Inside here, you see another piece of felt, right?
Underneath that bar.
Underneath that bar, you see
yes,
it
okay.
sticking out as a piece
Yep.
of felt. And that is what needs to be oiled. And mine still has some oil on it, but actually it feels a little dry. And what actually is that felt is the it's your turn wheel, your
Oops, I'm out of shot here. There we go.
there we go. And it's nice and oiled now. And you just pop this cover back on to it. Right there.
Okay. So is there another spot that has to be oiled?
Yeah. Hang on. So
A lot of spots on these embroidery machines for oiling.
okay, we've got the bulk of it done. We need to take the cover off of this arm.
So all the screws that you've been taking out all just need the one screwdriver,
Yeah, the one
Phillips.
screwdriver, the Phillips screwdriver. And here's another one at the end here.
Now, just as an aside, Walter had a little accident when he was bringing the embroidery machine down here to my workbench. He kind of slipped on the steps and sat on it, and yes, he broke a little tiny piece off of the arm, which we'll have to see if we can get replaced. I don't think it'll be that difficult to get it replaced.
My arm does this now, and it's not supposed to do that.
Arm's not supposed to do that. Yeah.
Okay. And this cover.
Have you got the screw right out? Yes, you do. No, you don't. Yes, you do.
Yeah, it's the snap.
So there must be a little clip under it, too.
Yeah.
Sure there's not another screw?
No. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay,
right.
So that has the belt that moves the carriage back and forth. And it has a little felt here that needs to be oiled.
that little white thing right there.
Yeah, the little white thing. And you can put a drop there, a couple of drops here. Just rotate a bit when you put a drop on it. And it absorbs the oil. And there you go. Just it's nice and oiled up now. And that's all it needs, oil there.
So now you put this back on. What's the trick for putting that on? There's a little groovy thing.
It just sits on. I don't know why I was having such a hard time getting it off. Because it seems to be hard to get it off when you're getting videoed.
That's the story, and he's sticking to it.
Of course, it could be because I sat on it.
Well, there's always that, too.
Trouble. Screwing the cover in now.
I don't think it must not be quite lined up.
Yeah. There we go. Make sure you can see your hole when you're screwing it in.
Okay, we won't go there. And then, of course, don't forget you have a second screw that you have to put in on the other end of the arm. Okay.
Okay.
So now where do we go?
Now there is one last place. This isn't that easy.
And where is this other place we're looking for?
There is and this is, you can't get this on film. You have to look at it here. If you look inside inside here, right, there's the carriage, and there's a little bushing that is another felt pad that needs to be boiled inside, and you can really only see that in here when you're looking down in here.
So basically you have to look at it from above.
Which I don't even. Yeah.
So is it a little piece of felt too?
Yes, it is. It's a little piece of felt as well.
I don't think there's any way I can
probably
get that. Yeah, you can't get that.
It's
really.
right at the edge of the carriage, and if you poke it with the awl, you can see that it's there.
Just believe us.
Yeah.
It's there.
And that's it.
And that's it. So now it should purr like a kitten, but it won't, because this one, he's got the little broken piece. Oh, there's more. Just when we thought it was safe to go in the water. What have we forgotten?
The only part that I've forgotten is the one that's underneath the bobbin case.
Oh, well, that one's the easiest one of them all to do. And to do that, and most people would know this because it works the same way as on a sewing machine, you unscrew the plate.
Yeah,
Are you going to do that? Here.
I don't have my unscrew.
I have it here.
Yeah, of course, that's the one that requires the other screwdriver.
This one, it needs a flathead and a small one because you got to get under there with it. But this is the same with your domestic sewing machine. The same idea. You take the plate off. Now, if you've got a Janome M7 like I do, I just push a button and the plate automatically pops up so you can take it away. But these ones don't have that on the embroidery machine. You have to take these screws out, and they are a little bit fiddly because of the size of the screwdriver. You need a really small screwdriver. And what I mean by small is the height of it. You can see that one's a really tiny screwdriver. It came with the machine. So you take off your plate. You take out your bobbin. Take your bobbin case out.
You take your bobbin case out. Pull a little thread that's in there.
And right there.
Right there in the middle is...
That's the wick that's in that hole. You may see the wick popping up a little bit. Do not ever pull that wick out, because it looks like a piece of lint from, fabric or something like that. And there have been many stories where people thought that's what it was and they pulled it out. That's what you need to oil this particular part. So don't pull out the wick. Okay. And then you just reassemble. Drop your bobbin in, your bobbin case, that is.
Right. And
then you put your plate back on, screw it down.
And then you're done.
And then you're done. So you can see there's quite a bit to the oiling of these embroidery machines.
I mean, if you're not comfortable doing that, you can take it in and get it serviced, but it will cost you.
It's going to probably at least $100. And while you have it in there, you might as well have them check the whole machine out to make sure everything's running smoothly. Now, my machine is not running smoothly right now. As I said, I put a lot more hours on my machine than Walter puts on his. But you get to know your machine pretty well, and you can tell when you hear when it needs this kind of servicing. You don't have to do this very often. How long ago was it when you oiled my machine before? It's been
a while, but you use it a lot.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't this year, was it?
It might have been.
It might have been the earlier part of this year but it's been at least 6 to 8 months since we oiled my machine. So that's what we're going to do to mine next. The same procedure. And hopefully everything will be running smooth with that. Okay, so it was very difficult to get into certain angles. Walter's hands kept getting in the way. But I hope you grasp the concept of what we were showing there. It can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, there's only certain areas. There's certain areas, and the areas that you oil do make sense if you really think about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I had other tips for keeping machine prepped. Well, we've talked about that in other videos. This one was primarily to focus upon the whole lubrication, oiling of the machine. So I guess in recap, make sure you use proper sewing machine oil. Don't use anything else. Make sure you keep it clean. If you're having thread breaks or anything like that, change your needle out first. Make sure you've cleaned the machine and oil the little wick underneath the bobbin. If you're still having problems, then that means that probably you need to do a deep cleaning, and now that will be your choice whether you're going to venture out there and try it on your own or you're going to take it to your dealer. But don't ignore it. Do not ignore it. It's going to wreck your machine if you do. And plus, you're just not going to get the satisfaction. It's not going to make good stitches. And you're not going to be happy.
Yeah, you may curse your embroidery machine and say, "Oh, my embroidery machine doesn't work. I've tried everything." And it turned, did you try oiling it? Like, I mean, I was even talking to somebody not too long ago that complained that their 500D, oh, I've used it and used it, just it just doesn't seem to work. And I said, well, do you oil it regularly? And they sort of looked at me like,
yeah, deer in headlights. And also, the golden rule of any of this, don't sit on or drop your machine, because that'll just F you up to no end. Okay, so that's it for this week. I hope you found some things here that are of interest to you. And yeah, on to the retreat, and see you all next week. Bye for now.
bye for now.